Sick. Sounds good. All right. Well, appreciate you joining. We'd love to just kick things off if we can get an intro about you and how you got involved with PartyDAO.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jamie Aranda. I'm a member of PartyDAO. I've been a member from the beginning. PartyDAO was formed in a crowdfund on Mirror around the kind of very high level spec of what PartyBid is today. And I've been focused on everything kind of go to market, growth, everything we did with the launch and so on. So just thinking about how we kind of form this product to get traction in the market. In terms of what PartyBid is at a very high level, practically speaking, it's a way to pool funds. It's permissionless, so anyone can kind of pop into a party, contribute funds, and that pool of money essentially has one goal, which is to try to win an NFT auction. And those simple mechanics, I think, are playing with a few ideas that we've gotten really excited about that I'm looking forward to diving into today. But I think the first piece of that is we're really interested in this idea of multiplayer ways for people to participate economically in different things. And that theme has come up in a whole bunch of different ways, anything from kind of like Wall Street bets, to different things in DeFi and crypto. But I think so far, a lot of what we've seen in crypto is fairly single player. Like you buy Bitcoin or trade Bitcoin on your own. You engage with DeFi on your own, or you bid on an NFT auction on your own. So being able to open that up and do that with a crew of people, we think is producing kind of interesting social dynamics. The back end of that, like what we're seeing produced out of that, which we did not expect at all initially, is PartyBid's sort of a way to bootstrap communities. We're seeing out of the zombie party of the living dead that happened late last week. There's now a small community of people around the dead token. That's the fractionalized version of the zombie punk. And we're seeing that with other communities as well. And so that part was something that was more emergent and unexpected, but we were really inspired by it, and we're really eager and excited about playing with that more and baking that more into the product itself.
Yeah, that's fantastic. The emerging qualities of PartyBid and the way that the community has sort of rallied around some of these bids have been absolutely insane. There was also the recent party bids around the Black crypto punks. There was the one to donate money to Coin Center, and just like a lot of very cause mission based party bids that I think even I didn't expect with the launch of the product. So absolutely fantastic on that. John, I see you just joined. Appreciate you hopping on. Do you want to give a quick intro real quick?
Hey, yeah, sure. I'm John. I was the kind of the project lead on PartyBid, and I'm a former founder, designer. Been in crypto for a few years now, and when this all started coming together, when the idea was just kind of coming together, I just kind of started trying to loop in people to work on it and work together with the team, getting this all ready for launch. So, that's all I really have to say there.
So, appreciate you. I think that's actually a really good segue into what I would like to dive into next, which is like the PartyDAO origin story. I think some people are aware of the crowdfund on Mirror and how like the party token got distributed and how things got started on that end. But if you guys can kind of give like the story of those early days of PartyDAO and how it kind of went from token to like functioning DAO with a product team.
Yeah, totally. So, Danny, you want to go?
Well, maybe I'll just tackle the first part, and you can pick it up from when the genesis of PartyDAO to kind of split it up a little bit. But the initial story begins just as an idea on Twitter. So Dennis Nazaroff, who found Mirror, posted online just the idea of PartyBid, so a way to bid on NFT options collectively, using kind of a smart contract to pool funds. And that idea proliferated online, and eventually Anish, who's on the research team at Paradigm, actually built an MVP of that on chain, just the contracts, like no front end, and was able to go win an auction on Mirror for the Colin Samir NFT that they were auctioning. So that was the MVP of PartyBid that Anish put together, and it won its first auction. The beginnings of PartyDAO, which I'll hand over to John to kind of talk about more, begin with trying to take that idea kind of to a more production level and actually like productize it and bring it to market more.
Yeah, so I mean, once there was a token in people's hands, we basically did kind of the standard crypto thing of start a Discord server and use the collab land bot to gate it by the token holders. So that was set up, and we had all of I guess the DAO members in one place. And the way we've kind of put things together so far in terms of DAO processes is more of a lightweight token-weighted voting setup where we kind of try to vote and reach consensus as a group on broader, high-level decisions and initiatives that we want to push towards, and then typically kind of put those things in the hands of people who can make quicker, more iterative decisions. So in the very first couple of weeks of the DAO, I put together a proposal for just like a spec of a V1 product and what it would look like to build it, and just propose that to people with a rough kind of initial budget and what it might look like, what roles might look like on a team required to build that. And that kind of went through a process of discussion in the Discord channels, doing kind of like Discord poll voting, moving to a snapshot vote, and then the snapshot vote for us is kind of the final step for formal approval. And with that, we kind of set our basic governance process, and that's how decisions have been made since then. So we moved into a proposal for appointing an initial team and deciding on an initial budget and spec. And those are kind of the high level decisions. Once those things are agreed upon, those teams of people can then just kind of go take that budget and take that spec and execute on it and make kind of micro decisions along the way as a smaller group. So that's what we've got going now. And yeah, Danny, feel free to fill in any gaps there.
Yeah, I mean, I think taking a step back, there's maybe two cool pieces of that story, and I'm sure there are others as well. But one is the concept of this idea for a product propagating online, and it almost establishing some kind of initial product market fit by the fact that people were willing to jam on it and get engaged just based on the kind of very high level spec that was being tweeted out. So I think that kind of speaks to some of what the future of building might look like. People being able to engage online and stuff, riff on these things in real time and produce very on the fly MVPs to kind of test those ideas out. The second piece that's cool to me, and what attracted me to PartyDAO, I think, and I was going to be ignorant of the DAO landscape in general, but to me, a lot of DAOs looked very investment focused or transactional. So they were about pulling funds together and things like Pleaser DAO or investment clubs and investment syndicates and so on. My own personal time and energy, like I like to build, like I like being involved in the product development process and helping that grow and gain traction. So seeing a DAO come together that was focused explicitly on software development and using that as the anchor and the framework around which to establish kind of a new model for being able to build a product, I thought was incredibly interesting. And it sort of offered a new model in addition to what we've seen traditionally in the crypto space around progressive decentralization, where you start out with a more traditional startup team that is VC funded. There is a company, there is a team with like a structure and a hierarchy, versus here like trying to take a more crypto native model to actually kind of establish that product development process.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think I would love to hear more about the product development process specifically as it pertains to the way that the team was structured relative to the rest of the DAO. So obviously there were hundreds of PartyDAO party token holders, but there was only a small group that was actively working on the project, as John mentioned. What did the relationship look like between the core development team and the rest of the DAO? And how did you guys decide what decisions needed to be made at the broader DAO level versus what decisions could be made internally?
Yeah, so I'd say there's definitely kind of long periods of the smaller V1 team doing work on the product together, where I would say you'd maybe consider them to be high-level checkpoints in which that team would get feedback from the broader DAO. So in terms of in the weeds solidity decisions, design decisions, etc., V1 team, basically is just deciding that amongst the small group. However, I'd say the most notable things here were in maybe a week-ish out, maybe even less than a week, we ran a mainnet party bid, our first one actually, for the DAO internally. And so we gathered a bunch of feedback and QA stuff from DAO members that we were able to fix and improve before our live production launch. And we also did, a bit of internal testing like that along the way. But I definitely say that the relationship there is kind of, like I said before, the DAO definitely kind of it approves a trusted group of people to go execute on the thing. And I'd say a lot of the product development process was truly amongst that group with these high level checkpoints for feedback from everyone else.
I would add to that the way PartyBid was rolled out and some of the reaction to it, I'm not sure the reaction would have been the same if PartyBid was released by a traditional startup. There were the people in the DAO who were involved, and I believe pretty much every major player in a lot of the PartyBids that have come out since the product launch we're actually in the DAO. So Andy from Fractional started Party of the Living Dead. He was in the DAO. Sirsu, who started the Crypto Cookout to go after multiple Black Punks, he was in the DAO as well. There are a few other examples of that happening. So I think there was kind of this community structure, this minimal viable community structure to the DAO that allowed the product to propagate. And the product itself is very, and I didn't really appreciate this maybe prior to the launch, but it is very attuned to some of those community structures. So I think that was that feedback loop was super helpful.
Yeah, 100%. The product itself is definitely even more so than was realized during the product development process, but definitely attuned to the type of community that it's spawned since. I think on the points of DAO structures, you made a really good point, John, about the team kind of being heads down on the smaller details, and then PartyDAO as a collective kind of coming together to vote on more high level checkpoint strategies. I'm curious, as you guys are now thinking about the next steps of PartyDAO, PartyBid, or maybe even higher level decisions of the rest of the community is not aware of, what does that balance currently look like now that V1 product development is over, both from an iterative perspective on PartyBid, but then also the future of PartyDAO more generally?
Yeah, so it's been pretty obvious since launch that there's a ton of immediate work to do to continue even just maintaining PartyBid, but also improving it. So the team that built this product has a long list of not only bugs and things to kind of squash and improve in terms of reliability, but we've already got notes and some plans for improvements to a V2 of the protocol. So in that regard, I think there's a ton to do. And from the initial team that worked on this, I think there's a pretty significant desire to keep the party going and keep working. So I think the latter part of your question around DAO structure starts to matter a lot. Can't share a lot outside the DAO right now, but I would just say like there are kind of immediate short-term plans to ensure that the team can just keep this going in the immediate and keep working on it with kind of a full effort. And then in terms of the longer-term structure of the DAO, I think we're thinking a lot about basically what it means to be self-sustaining and what it means to enable the kind of work that was done to make this launch possible. I guess this is an interesting question, right? Because as a DAO, there's like clearly a desire to be transparent and open, and yet there's kind of like these different groups of people being very open and transparent within the DAO versus on like the Twitter space. So I would just say like there's definitely plans to set up longer term things, but I don't know, Danny, what do you think that people do that?
Well, I just want to point out Steve Ivanoff is listening in as well, and he was a very, very core team member. I don't know if we can like give him bring him up on stage as well. But just to add to John, my interpretation of like what's happening with the DAO now is we did this initial crowdfund. It was $100,000, like no VCs, no bank accounts involved. There was no company set up. It was really just people coming together to like build and ship a product who were inspired by like the idea and the potential for that product. And we have been like very heads down on product since then. And I would say like the DAO in its current form today is like an MVP DAO, like it's a very minimal viable DAO. And I think now that we're starting to see some semblance, like I don't want to overstate any of PartyBid's success, but like some semblance of product market fit, I think the next step that we have to do, and John's articulated this very clearly early on in some of the PartyDAO posts, blog posts on Mirror, that like really we're building two things. We're building this product, and then we're also building out this DAO. And what a DAO looks like that is entirely focused on shipping software versus, say, like governing a protocol or pooling funds for investment, so on that we've seen so far. I'm excited to see what like new models get built out to accommodate that.
Yeah, for sure. Danny, I have a follow-up question on that, but I just want to introduce Steve. I know you were able to come to stage as a speaker. Do you want to just give a quick intro for everybody real quick?
Sure, yeah. Hey everybody. So yeah, I'm Steve. I used to be a tech lead at 0x and been an independent software engineer for about the past year, working on a variety of projects, such as rats.art, solvency.art, and I'm also an advisor to Art Blocks as well. Long time like DeFi enthusiast as well as explorer of the metaverse. So that's a little bit about me, and I've been on the core V1 PartyBid team throughout the whole process, and really enjoyed working with everybody and pushing the product forward.
Fantastic. Appreciate you joining, Steve. Annie, I guess my question based on what you just mentioned is, so you mentioned before that one of your big motivations for getting involved with PartyDAO was the fact that it wasn't as investment focused per se as like maybe a lot of other DAOs. And given what you guys just mentioned around this idea of like a DAO that ships software rather than a DAO that's like governing a protocol, how do you think the motivations for participating and joining PartyDAO are going to be different relative to other DAOs in the space that kind of fit the other category? And how does that align with like your personal motivations for working on the DAO as well?
Yeah, I think, at a really high level and practical level, what you're going to need in the DAO are people who can contribute towards building and shipping a software product. And recruiting or having inbound of that type of skill set. And so I think that you'll likely see, and I think you've already seen that kind of like shape some of the membership and some of the culture within PartyDAO. Where that goes, I think, is an open question. I mean, you can imagine the treasury. So PartyBid does charge a fee 2 successful party bids that win their auction, and that fee goes into the PartyDAO multisig. And that can be used for ongoing software development, but you can also be, imagine using it for different types of things as well. To kind of help the party bid community, help communities that have actually bootstrapped using party bid to kind of further themselves and so on. They're kind of interesting directions that could go. So I think that product mindset, though, I think is pretty well instantiated early on in terms of like what PartyDAO is about and what it's trying to do.
So something else to add to that is that I think that it's been really awesome and important that PartyDAO takes fees from the start. So, we started taking 5% fee right from the launch, and all of those fees go into a treasury that's managed by the DAO. So, we did a 25 ETH mirror crowdfund to kick off this whole thing, and now we have almost 75 ETH in the treasury shortly after launching. So it's really powerful that the software that we put out more than paid for the initial crowdfund amount that was put in, and now we have this treasury to work with that we can use without having to rush to figure out how do we do an additional crowdfund or an additional raise. Like, we've already been able to generate a pretty non-trivial amount of ETH that we can use to continue to keep the party going without rushing into any additional funding sources, which I think is really powerful.
Yeah, the fact that money was able to be raised so quickly, both on the front end through the year crowdfund and now through the fees from the product itself is absolutely fantastic. I'll say before we move on to the next question really quick that sometime within the next 5 to 10 minutes, I want to start calling people to stage. So people in the audience, if you have any questions, make sure you start brainstorming those, and then right after this question, probably we'll start calling people to stage if you raise your hand. I guess the last question that I have for you guys on my end is, and we can go one by one through all of these. Be a emerging community, but then in addition to that, what was something that was fairly obvious, a hypothesis that you had prior that ended up being pretty true?
I actually missed the question. My connection cut out. Could you repeat it?
Yeah. Same happened to me, actually.
Oh, that's weird. That may have been a Twitter thing, then, because we're all in totally different places.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
okay, cool. All good. So yeah, a shortened question would just be A, what was biggest unexpected insights or learning that you had from working on the PartyBit and PartyDAO more broadly? And then B, what was a hypothesis that you went in with that you felt was pretty obvious that ended up being confirmed? Steve, we can start with you on that one.
Yeah, I think that overall, I knew that there was demand for this product because we were able to raise money for it so quickly in the Mirror crowdfund, and we got such a talented group of people in the DAO from the beginning to help support it. So I knew that there was a demand for it, but I think what was unexpected was just how much demand there was, and what a powerful primitive this is, and how quickly new communities formed that use this primitive that we didn't necessarily even plan or expect. So we were involved with setting up the zombie auction and coordinating that, along with a few big auctions to kick off the product. But then shortly after that, 2 days after launching, we had a party bid that was used to raise funds for Coin Center during a very important time with everything going on with the U.S. legislature, and that was really meaningful to me. And then shortly after that, we had Sirsu organizing this crypto cookout to help buy these black and brown punks and form these kind of mini DAOs around these POC punks that had really powerful social implications for what he was doing there. So I was just really blown away by the new communities and new use cases that spun up in a matter of hours and days shortly after launching, and how much energy there is around those communities and how vibrant they are. So I didn't necessarily anticipate how quickly this primitive would be used to kind of spin up these novel communities that we didn't even anticipate or plan like internally as a DAO.
Nice. Yeah, that's spot on. I would probably just answer after Steve because that's very related to what I was going to say. I mean, I think if you're asking about the non-surprising piece, I think the non-surprising piece is like one general thesis for the DAO and the product is that taking single player things in crypto and making them multiplayer, making things that you can now do with friends or with a group of strangers is something that's exciting. And that seems kind of obviously true. And that did seem to play out in the product, especially with Khalil's multiplayer cursors and chat, which really made that multiplayer aspect of the product tangible. I think the surprising thing for me, like, is just like empirically seeing what Steve just said. I think I had like kind of theoretically thought that, you know, owning, I had this kind of theory that like owning a fraction of a punk, there may be some kind of premium on that fraction because not only are you getting a fraction that you of something you didn't previously have access to at all, but that fraction is also has some kind of like community premium. Like there's an idea of like, oh, if I'm buying something with a group of other people and we all believe in it, there's a community there. But that was definitely like that idea for me is something that kind of sounds nice, but also sounds a little bit like bullshit. And it wasn't clear that like the community aspect of holding an NFT in common with a group of other people would actually have like any like emotional draw to it until the thing was live. And you know, I hold, you know, tons of different like ERC20 tokens, for example, and some of them are governance tokens, some of them are not. There's sometimes a kind of a ceiling on the emotional draw to the experience of holding those tokens. But I think the surprising thing here was like several auctions that have happened on PartyBid in the past, you know, 4 or 5 days have had a real community appeal. I mean, like the Blitz Squad auction that happened on the first day has like pretty strong contingency in the Blitmap server, and there's like meetups being planned. I think the stuff that Sirsu did with the Black and Brown punks has like really tangibly formed into a strong community that is aligned around certain ideals and goals. And so that's like the surprising piece for me. Not that it didn't make sense in the first place, but just to see something that kind of sounded nice turn out to be like a real legit thing has been really cool.
Yeah, I think. Actually, go ahead, Danny. Sorry.
No, please.
I was just going to say 2 quick things. First, I think the community aspect really surprised me as well. And I think like one element of it that I think is underrated is unlike other ERC20 or social tokens, everybody that is participating in a party bid is getting the token at the same time in the same way. And I think that like focus on time and space and like being in or participating in the same event really helps like build the community early on relative to maybe like somebody just buying the token on Uniswap and not necessarily getting it at the same time as everybody else, right? So that's number one. And then number two, I also just wanted to plug that the Forefront Marketplace will be supporting all of the PartyBid ERC20s that come out of each of these bids. So keep an eye out for that. But now that I'm done shilling, Danny, please take the floor.
No, that was really well stated in terms of like there's an actual event that everyone who gets the token participated in, and that event is also really like energetic and cathartic. Like it's an auction. You know, you see these kind of volleys. There was a Blitmap auction yesterday where there was a party bid winning, but it was constantly getting outbid by another bidder, and seeing those volleys is like it's like really exciting. And then at the end, if you win, it's like, okay, we've been through this like moment together, and that moment kind of being the catalyst for community. To circle back on your original question of like what was expected and what wasn't expected, I didn't expect any of this shit, to be honest. Like I kind of have a philosophy too of like going in with an open mind, like just don't assume anything. Like a bit of a mantra, just do not take any kind of assumptions for granted, and like be open to what might emerge or behaviors might emerge. I would say though, and this is lifting off points that both Steve and John and yourself have already mentioned, but the social element, while we kind of knew it in the abstract, what was interesting, but actually seeing it play out online was a completely different thing. And anecdotally for me, what that meant was like the moment that the zombie punk party bid won, so Party of the Living Dead. I then went to my, I was in Discord the whole time, and people going back and forth. We had a Discord channel set up for Party of the Living Dead, and there was a ton of activity there. It was really fun and exciting. And then I went onto Twitter, and just my feed was just flooded with people who had changed their avatars to the zombie punk wearing a party hat with the kazoo. And I didn't see that coming, and it just started happening again and again, like literally just hundreds of people. And it was so unexpected, and like it honestly like resonated on like an emotional level, like what was happening. I was like completely blown away. I was very appreciative. Like I think that was like a special moment that like the community did, and to the extent that like PartyBid did anything to kind of help stoke that, I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, that particular piece I think was huge for just getting more people interested in what the hell was happening with PartyBid, then also be like creating that like sense of unity amongst the community. Was I guess Steve's profile picture. And the cool thing is I've seen them, like it wasn't just like a one day thing where like immediately after the bid, people kind of switch their profile pictures back. Like even today, if you scroll through Twitter, I'm sure you will see dozens of different people all maintaining that same profile picture. There are a couple in this room right now, right? So that was definitely a huge unexpected like effect on my end as well.
Yeah, I think something that's pretty interesting, you see in the punk community, like people will go to a lot of extreme measures to help kind of bring up the value of their punk by creating derivative works or like creating like a personality for these punks that they own. So you see that with like the Punks comic and all the characters there. And I know of a few other projects that are currently being built that are all based around turning these punks into characters. But those punks, prior to PartyBid and Fractional are all just owned by one person, kind of trying to pump their own bags, like through creating projects around them. But it's an entirely different thing for 400 plus people to own the same punk and to be rallying around creating narrative and community around that punk, which could help drive the value up and everybody can win. So I think that's a pretty powerful concept. And with these Black and Brown punks, we're even playing around with the idea of what would it mean for a future PartyBid to actually have a portion of all the fractions that are created go to some sort of treasury that is then governed by the other token holders. So we as a community could make decisions about how to incentivize people to make more interesting derivative works based on these punks that we all own fractions in. So again, really just kind of taking something that used to be single player and making it multiplayer with a lot of creative energy around it, I think is just so powerful.
That's sick. And I'm Steve, I'm very curious too, like what like kind of the later stage or long tail version of that is. So like one thing right now is if you had like the single owner of Punk 2066, is it 2066 that's the zombie that or is it 2616? Well, either way, yeah, it's 2066. Well, okay, so if you think about like the single owner of Punk 2066 was able to like kind of in this way increase the value of the punk because you're selling it to a whole group of people that's all maybe more excited about that punk and owning it as a group than any individual would have been. Now there's also kind of an interesting like permanent change that happens to that punk, which is like this whole community has owned it now, like hundreds of people have owned it. And at some point, that group of people may choose to sell the punk. And the secondary sale from the fractionalized group to a new individual may be powerful as well, because that individual owns a punk that this group of people had, collective experience with, or maybe some emotional affinity towards. And I can definitely see maybe in the future some kind of buyout of these fractional shares happening where someone kind of not only proposes a sale but offers to be kind of like a steward of that punk or offer some kind of reward to the group of current holders. So there's definitely it's just interesting to think about like what culturally changes about the work, be it a punk or otherwise, as a result of having been owned by a community.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Really quick, I just want to say if people want to start raising their hands to come to stage, and we can just like as we wrap up this particular conversation, we can start calling people up to stage. But I added 2 tweets that I saw this morning to the spaces. One of which is around this idea of sneakers that like 10 years ago, if you were wearing the same like hype sneakers as everybody else, people would think you were lame. But like now, like sneaker culture has sort of shifted to this multiplayer mode where like people are buying into a particular narrative, and now wearing like a sneaker that everybody else is wearing is actually like a cool thing, depending on like what the narrative around that particular thing is, right? And I think the same goes for punks, and the same goes for like a lot of what PartyBit is standing for here. As far as like, not only is PartyBit creating like the mechanism for people to bid on these things, but it's also creating like the mechanism for the narrative to be crafted by the community, so that fractional ownership actually makes a lot of sense.
That's super interesting.
But yeah, if anybody, I don't see, I guess I'm not going to see, but Carlos, if you can call anybody that has hands up, so we can start doing some Q&A really quick. But Steve, John, and Danny, is there anything else on that point that you guys want to touch on before we shift to audience questions?
I mean, just another idea to riff on is like I do. People have been talking about DAOs in the abstract for a long time, and there are some interesting discussions happening there. But I do sort of see this path where each PartyBit is a DAO, and I do think kind of having more narrowly defined ways to start DAOs in terms of what the call to action is, like, makes a lot of sense for bringing DAOs more mainstream and just having them proliferate more. I think for any user, the idea of starting a DAO sounds like a very like heavy kind of abstract idea versus like, I'm going to click this button to join a party, and then there's this action that we're all taking together. It's actually relatively in concept simple, and then there's this community afterwards, and there's a kind of fun element to it. So I'm excited to see kind of what other products around DAOs and NFTs get constructed in a similar way in terms of like the social side of this. And I sort of view it as like a similar unlock to like what happened with social media online. Like previously, if you wanted to publish online, you had to set up a website, and you used like Dreamweaver or some crazy tools or GeoCities and Squarespace and so on to actually go like set up your web page, and you had to maintain that web page, and every time it was a huge lift just to like push content out there. And then it became a lot more structured, like post a photo to Instagram or post 2 sentences to Twitter, and that was the major unlock in terms of like volume and page views and so on. So I think there is kind of a similar premise here that's at play that I'm really excited to see in other products, like not just PartyBit but beyond as well.
Yeah, likewise. I wrote something online earlier this year about like terms that get kind of loaded with like competitive cultural meaning to different people, and DAO is definitely one of those terms where people argue over like what counts as a DAO versus not a DAO, or like everyone's talking about DAOs but in like personally thinking about something totally different when they talk about it. And I've been a big proponent of like maybe sharpening DAO discourse by like defining a DAO in terms of what its goal is. Like, you don't just start a DAO. Like, it's like saying, hey, we're all interested in like starting a company. It's like, yeah, like what company do you want to start? Like, same thing here. And so I like having built something that feels like it can enable DAOs in a more like pointed, specific sense.
100%. That is an entirely different conversation that I would love to have at some point, because +1, I see that problem all the time. But Ethan came to stage as a speaker, so what's up, Ethan? If you want to just like introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hey, yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Obviously, shout outs to you guys at PartyDAO. Shout outs to fellow Deadheads. I was just wondering to ask you guys a question for PartyDAO in general. It feels like it's a new approach to product design and sort of like a startup product company. Are you guys still doing a sort of product roadmap? Like what's next on the backlog? Do you have that kind of structure? Be interested to know like what's coming up.
Yeah, so there's definitely, I would say we don't have like a formal product roadmap as of this moment, but that's definitely what we're working towards. We have a bit more of a backlog right now because the immediate priorities are around like infrastructure and reliability. In terms of things that you can say are definitely in the immediate, PartyBid has a pretty open Solidity interface called a market wrapper, and that abstract interface can be implemented in different ways to support different NFT collections and markets. And so one big thing for us in the immediate is adding new market wrappers and support for them in our UI so that parties can be started around a wider variety of NFTs. So far we've seen punks with a lot of traction. The Blitmap House, released by Zora a couple of days ago, has seen a party, within 24 hours, and one immediate goal here is to support new projects like Nouns and other things by adding new market wrappers. And then, I think there's a lot of stuff around community management on the back end of winning a party. So if you and a bunch of other partiers have just won a bid, I think there's a lot we can really improve around helping that community find each other, communicate, and coordinate around what's next. So there's a whole set of product improvements there. But I think it's really interesting to innovate on like the organizational model with a DAO, but I don't think that you want to like stray too far away from practices within software development that we know are tried and true. So like definitely we'll be operating with a roadmap and with immediate priorities.
I think the point around community engagement and discovery is super interesting. Like I know with the party pack bid that just happened, like we won the bid, we had the tokens distributed, and then we were like, okay, what now? We should probably like get collab labs set up. We need to figure out a way to like find all of these people who bid on this particular project. And that like is something that like all DAOs are facing, but like it's also like there are very concrete steps that every party DAO or every party bid is going to have to face immediately after winning the bid. So I could definitely see that being like a very actionable thing in the short term. Ethan, not sure if that answered your question, but do you have anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, that was great. Thanks. I guess we need a solvency party next.
Hell yeah.
Let's go.
Good stuff. Anybody else want to come to stage, please feel free to raise your hands. And then I'm going to just also leave an open floor for the PartyDAO team up here. If there's anything that you guys want to add, to share with the community, any conversation that like you think hasn't been had that you'd like to get started, please use this as an opportunity to do so.
Well, in the gap, I would love to hear from more people who have questions. But if there's a kind of a pause here to say anything, I would just say, if you haven't already, we do have a Discord. There are public channels, not just for DAO members, around finding new auctions, posting about NFT auctions you want to start a party for, and even just providing product feedback and support and getting support. So if you have anything around product feedback or an upcoming series or auction that you're excited about, definitely jump in the Discord because we're all there around the clock. And you can find that on partybid.app. There's a little icon for Discord at the bottom.
Sick. Yeah, we'll also link that to the bottom of the forefront announcement tweet for this conversation if you guys want to link there. PartyDAO Discord is always popping. So highly encourage everybody to join. Don't think we see any more hands up, so we might be able to wrap up a little bit early here, yo. Speak now or forever hold your peace, people in the audience, if you'd like to ask a question. But Steve, John, Danny, I really, really appreciate you guys joining. This was a 10 out of 10 combo. For those wondering, like, hey, I only got part of the conversation or missed a lot of it, or you have friends who missed, this was recorded and we will be sharing with both the PartyDAO team, but also like more broadly throughout the Forefront community and social media soon. And yeah, really, really appreciate you guys. This is great.
Awesome. Thanks for hosting. This is fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This was great.
Hey, what's up, guys? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we got okay, cool, we got a question. John.
Yeah, cool.
Let's do
Thanks. So chiming in here while I'm cooking some dinner and just catching up to speed with this whole space around NFTs and DAOs. And I was just curious after seeing the IPCC report on climate change yesterday, if you guys are seeing any interesting movements around people using this technology and kind of social coordination mechanism to combat climate change, enact social action, just kind of seeing these things applied to a more meaningful space than just asset acquisition and wealth creation.
Yeah, it's a great question. I believe Steve referenced this earlier, but there was a party bid over the weekend called Party Pack. And the NFT that was being bid on, all the proceeds would 100% go to Coin Center, which is a nonprofit focused on advocacy and regulations in the crypto space. And you could imagine that model, like a very simple model, like someone creates an NFT, says that they're donating all the proceeds to charity, and it could be an environmental or climate change organization as well. And then a party bid forms to be able to effectively donate to that charity. And it's a social way to do it. It's a way to do it with others. You can kind of convene with that community online as well. I think there is something there. There's a core premise that is promising in terms of using party bid as a way to kind of donate to charity. And we're really excited about that model. I mean, we want to see more. There has been some inbound about doing more cause-focused work, where we're also seeing that there was this group around like the Crypto Cookout where they were buying Black punks together, and that related to a lot of themes around social justice and so on. And so we're really, really excited to see people kind of coalesce around those types of themes. And I think it's kind of like natural with some of the social elements at play that people are going to be especially passionate about cause-related ideas.
Yeah, just as a side note, actually, I saw that Jesse Walden from Variant had 2 tweets that maybe we can pin up here that were actually suggesting just that about using Party Bid to pool ETH together for climate change. And there were 2 tweets that spoke to that, as well as like thinking about generically like PartyDAO for politics. And again, I think we've seen a piece of that with the raising money for Coin Center, but I think there's a lot of there's a lot of space to explore there. And if you particularly are interested in that particular aspect of using party bids or building something within PartyDAO to help these causes, like definitely would love to brainstorm on Discord with you.
Sounds great, guys. Thanks so much. I'm a new entrant to the space, but it feels really exciting, so appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, appreciate the question, John. Steve, I just pinned those 2 tweets that you mentioned to the space, so people can go check those out as well. I'm particularly excited about this idea of like PartyDAO for politics and how the communities that are being bootstrapped can not just be like around a particular like NFT, but using that NFT as a vehicle for a specific cause. I think is fantastic. And DAOs is social advocacy orgs as well. So will be super interesting to see how that plays out and what the mechanics of that look like. But John, appreciate the question. Appreciate you guys staying on for the final one, because I'm glad we got a little bit more audience engagement. And now this could be our official goodbye. So appreciate y'all for real. This was super great, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for hosting.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you.
Definitely. Peace out, y'all.
Peace.
Peace.